Melton, out of Asheville, North Carolina, has always been inspired by food and the love that is created when sharing dishes with family and friends. As a dedicated chef for over 20 years and the business owner of Blessed to Cook, Deva's culinary career brings experience and depth to her cooking. This year brought many exciting opportunities. Deva is a collaborator and chef with Everyday Gourmet Catering, which will be providing the space for tonight's event. As a line cook for the renowned Root Down food truck, Deva had the opportunity to compete in the Asheville Food Truck Showdown on the Food Network against celebrity chef Robert Irvine. You can catch that episode on Dinner Impossible, Season 10, Episode 3. Her newest culinary adventure will take her to St. Croix as a visiting sous chef for tropical dance vacations. All of her menus have been designed with simple cooking techniques utilizing everyday kitchen equipment to create delicious and healthy food quickly and easily. Enjoy.
My name is Deva Melton, and I've been cooking for about 22 years now, and it's kind of become second nature. So I'm really excited to share with you this super simple holiday meal. I just want to see. Okay, great. Everybody can hear. Thanks, good. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to do this super simple holiday meal. We have a lot to do in an hour. If you are cooking with me, I did make a couple of little changes. So you might want to take notes based on that. And if you fall behind, know that this is being recorded and you will have a recording to review with the menus and the recipes at a later date so you can prepare this at home. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, one thing that works really well for me when I have a lot to do in a short amount of time, if I'm entertaining, is be as organized as possible. So I have my sheet rack here with all of my menu items along with the ingredients that are needed, equipment over here, just kind of making the space feel like it's easy to work with. So you can do that in your own kitchen at home as well, and it will help you kind of process, cooking for a large crowd. Okay, so let's get cooking. All right, so what I have going here is a pot of water, and it is at a slow simmer. And I'm going to add an empty mixing bowl onto the top of the water. And now we have a double boiler. So what's going to happen here first is we're going to go ahead and prep our dessert, which is kind of a fancy dipped fruit with some different types of cookies, things like that are store-bought. It kind of takes the ease out of the dessert part of the meal. And it's going to look beautiful, and you can put little touches to it to make it feel a little bit more homemade. Okay, so what we've got here is about 1.5 cups of chocolate. We're going to pour that into our bowl, and the steam and the heat is going to do the rest. So we're going to leave that alone, and while that is melting, we are going to start with our candied pecans. This is something that I added last minute just because it's going to go with the kale salad at the very end of the class, and I just feel like it's delicious on kale. I think the menu actually mentions doing toasted walnuts, but you can feel free to do that as well. Okay, so here we go. First of all, when we are doing our pecans, you want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees, which I have done here behind me. And we are going to start by separating the egg white from the egg yolk. We do not need the yolk, but you will need the white. So we just crack the egg, go back and forth just a bit, shaking out that egg white. And then we're going to put the yolk to the side. In this container here, I have cinnamon, a little cumin, and a little bit of chili powder with some salt, as well as sugar. And we're going to pour that into our egg white. And then we're going to start whisking this up. You're basically going to whisk it until it starts to thicken just a bit. It takes about 30 seconds. If you're doing more than 2 cups of nuts, just add another egg yolk and a little bit more sugar. And this is an easy recipe to expand on. So basically, we're just making a delicious sugary coating for our pecans. And it's going to You'll see what it does. It's delicious. All right. So you want to keep whisking until it starts to thicken up and kind of thicken to the sides, like so. Just when you think you're there, whisk it 5 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're good. Okay. So now we are going to pour our pecans into our frothy egg mixture. Grab a spatula. And we're just going to toss those around to coat. Like so. Now to prepare your pan, you're going to want to spray it with a little bit of pan spray. Not spray that into your Bunsen burner. All right, so do just like that. Go into the pan, like so. There's a little bit of extra egg white, that's quite all right. Just a little bit more crunch. And you're going to spread that out into an even layer, like so. And I know in the kitchen personally, when I have a lot going on, a timer is my best friend. And you can use your cell phone or a timer, whatever you need to do, but you want to make sure that you check on these in 15 minutes because they will burn if they're left in the oven a little too long. So we're going to put this in the oven. Alrighty. So now we're going to check on our chocolate. And you can tell in the chocolate that it's starting to melt just a bit. It kind of gets a little bit of a sheen on it. See it sliding in the bowl there. At this point, we're going to stir. Careful not to get any water in this chocolate at this point because it will cause your chocolate to thicken and harden up and you're not going to be able to dip anything in there. So that looks perfect. We're going to turn our heat off, let that kind of rest a bit because I wanted to show you, this is like a little touch of something that you can do to make your store-bought cookies look like you made them at home and they're wonderful. Also, if you like to make your own cookies, they're also delicious and easy to put into, dip into chocolate. So I've got a couple of peppermint sticks here in the back. I'm going to take a meat mallet. You could also use the end of a knife, rolling pin, anything that you have around. I'm going to a bit. Let's see. Also great for frustration, just in case you have any of that as you're getting ready to rest and go into your holiday slumber. You're going to take a sheet tray that's been lined with a little bit of parchment. That's important just so it does not stick. If you don't have parchment in your house, no big deal. Just use a little bit of pan spray. You can also put down aluminum foil, but make sure you pan spray that and it will not stick. We're good here on our melted chocolate. And we've got some different fruits here and the cookies like I promised. And we're basically going to do a couple of our fruits first because once we, let's see, get back going. Just put that down like so. You might dip all of these, but you can dip as many as you need for your household. Have a little pineapple. Mango also dips well, of course bananas, but bananas, they get a little weird. They turn brown a little bit quicker than other things. You could do little Rice Krispie treats, lots of different things. So we're just gonna do a little bit of an assortment. I've got some strawberry sugar wafers. Once your chocolate starts to kind of wind down just a bit, you may need to kind of scrape it to the side so it's, you know, it's deep again. And we're going to keep dipping like so. These cookies, they were just beautiful, and I'm not even going to dip those in chocolate because sometimes it's nice to have something that's not in chocolate. However, for the other chocolate cookies, I'm going to take a half of a capful of peppermint extract. just a touch. We're gonna add that straight to the chocolate. And now you have a delicious flavored chocolate. You could use orange, you could use almond, you could use a little vanilla. It smells really nice. It's super strong. So whatever you decide to use, just a touch will do. That's for sure. Okay, so that's in there. I smell it. It's delicious. I'll put it down like so. We're going to take these double chocolate cookies. I'm going to dip those in the peppermint chocolate. I see that I've got a bit of chocolate on my wrist. Always happens. And the reason you're doing this first is because it needs time to set up in the fridge. So a good 10 to 20 minutes and even overnight. So this is a good one that you can prep ahead of time and just have in the fridge and it's all set and ready to go. And we're going to take some of those, slide that out of the way. That. We're going to take some of the crushed peppermints and we're just going to drop that right into that melted chocolate. Another thing you could do in this spot would be almonds. You could do chopped nuts. You could do toasted coconut. All sorts of things to add some different flavors and textures to make this feel like a festive holiday tray that is pretty easy. So I'm going to ask Rebecca to please put this in the fridge for us. And it's going to do its thing in the fridge while we do our thing for the rest of our meal. Okay, I like to clean as I go. It's a thing. You will find that it brings much ease to your life as long as you're doing that. And we're going to take our pot of water, put it to the side. All right, so the next thing we're going to work on is our pork chop. This is a pan-seared pork chop dish. The beauty of this is the pork is not your thing. It's very easy to just use chicken. That would be another good substitute for that. So I'm going to put some gloves on just while I'm dealing with a little raw meat here in the beginning. And I'm not sure about where you are, but North Carolina has been really hot today. So the kitchen is actually extremely hot this evening, which is a little strange for December. But you know, it is what it is. Okay, so for the pork chops, we're going to start with our pan searing of the actual pork chop. So we're going to come over and we're going to turn our heat onto about medium. You don't want to get it too hot because we really want a nice brown on the pork versus it burning too quickly before we achieve that. A little cheater trick, even though we're going to use olive oil, I also do a little bit of pan spray, and that just helps with its stick. While this is coming up to temperature, starting to smell those pecans. They smell delicious. We have a little bit of seasoning flour here. So we've got flour, we've got dried thyme, we've got salt and pepper. And what you can do is pour that into your plate. Just mix it with your fingers. You can also use gluten-free flour if that's a thing for you and your household. My favorite is a mixture of Bob's Red Mill. It's what I've found to be the most comparable to act just like flour. So you put your seasoned flour on the plate. I have 2 nice thick cut pork chops with the bone in. Again, you could easily substitute chicken in this space. We're just going to pat that down, shake off any excess. Pat this one down. When I'm cooking a piece of meat like so, I normally take it out of the refrigerator about an hour before I want to cook it. This brings it up to room temperature, and you're going to get a much more even cook time versus bringing it straight out of the fridge and it's super duper cold and it has a lot of room that has to catch up on it. So having your temperature or your meat at room temperature is a good tip to cut down on cooking time and cook things to be nice and even. How's everybody doing? Anybody have any questions so far?
Is it recommended to use a separate hot plate burner in addition to the oven, or can everything be put in the oven at the same time?
As far as
All of our items that
all of
we're,
the items? Well, so to get a nice pan sear, we're actually gonna make a pan sauce here in just a bit. So you do wanna be able to do some on the cooktop. And then as the recipe kind of unravels, we're going to put it into the oven at the same time with our sweet potatoes. And so everything will come out at the end. There's just a little bit of prep kind of ahead of time. So yeah, that's what's happening there. All right, so once that oil starts to kind of swirl nice and easy, I think we're just about there. I'm gonna put a little pinch of flour in there, and it is searing just a bit. So we're ready. Just be careful. Sometimes the heat will come at you. Just a bit. Okay, so we're gonna start with the pork chop. We're gonna just easily lay it in there. And then you can kind of tell by that first sizzle where you're at. If you need a little bit more heat behind it, just feel free to turn that heat up just a bit. Be super careful when you're placing that in the pan. There's nothing worse than oil scald. Okay, so we're gonna prep a little bit of our pan sauce. I have apple cider vinegar. I have a little stock. And we have a Honeycrisp apple. I like the Honeycrisp apple just because it does tend to hold its shape. And as it's being cooked down, it doesn't like really break apart or kind of get that mealy feel to it. So that's the one we're gonna stick with, and we're gonna do a little prep on that. Okay, so when I'm prepping my apple, I'm gonna cut this one side off. And then using this big base side, this is what I'm gonna rotate around for. So I'm gonna put that down, I'm gonna cut again. I'm gonna flip it, and I've got lots of base to cut on so the apple's not wobbly. We're just keeping our fingers safe. And then we're gonna get rid of the core. And this is up to you. I'm gonna go for kind of a large dice. You could also do a little bit of a slice on this as well. Some people like to peel half of the apple just to get rid of some of that texture. You know, that's kind of up to you and what you like. All right, so we've got our diced apple. Okay. Lots of good things happening over here. It's sizzling. I'm gonna take a peek. Oh, nope, not quite. Really, you want to do maybe like 2 to 3 minutes per side, and then we're going to finish it off in the oven on top of your prepped carrots. So I have 2 cups of, I call them heirloom carrots. They're really just carrots with a little bit of color. You can use regular orange carrots. You can use the kind of long, slim carrots, whatever you like. Just make sure you blanch them just a little bit. I blanched these for about 3 to 4 minutes, and so they're tender, only because the cooking time of the pork loin would not be long enough to cook the carrots from raw. So we've got our sheet tray here. We're going to use a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt, and some pepper. We're going to toss that around like so. And this is just going to become a nice little bed for those pork chops. And so as the pork chops or your chicken, whichever one you're doing, is cooking, those juices are going to start to caramelize into the carrots and just bring lots more flavor. So let's take a look here at our pork chops on the one side. Yeah, that's like that. And flip those around like so. Turn our heat just a bit. At this point, you can take a couple of your sprigs of thyme, and you could also use rosemary for this dish. It's nice. And we're going to put that into the hot oil. And what's happening now is the hot oil is hitting that thyme and it bringing out the flavors at the time and just flavoring our oil. So it's kind of a cheat because you don't have to pick the time, you don't have to chop it, all the jazz. We're just gonna do it just like this, and then we're gonna pull out the stems at the end, and you're gonna have all the flavor at the time with a lot less work. It's wonderful. All right, so this is cooking just nicely. All right, and then once we've got that side seared nicely, we're going to put that on top of our carrots. Okay, like so. And we're gonna set this to the side for just a bit. That's gonna come back into play. However, right now, we gotta deal with this hot pan sauce. So at this point, if you're getting a lot of smoke and it's feeling overwhelming, turn the heat off, take a break. It's no big deal. You can always redo the heat and start from scratch again. I'm gonna add 1 pat of butter. See, we've got a lot of heat going on. Be careful when you're dropping those apples into that. And that's what you want. So we're gonna let it do its thing. We're gonna salt. And pepper this just a bit. I'm gonna add a few more sprigs of thyme. Oh, here's our pans. Check those really fast. First of all, make sure that's under control. Follow my own advice. I'm gonna turn the heat down just a little bit. All right. So they're doing great. The pecans have to be cooked at a little bit of a lower temperature. We're gonna cook those for about 4 more minutes, and then we're gonna crank our temperature up to 375 to do our pork chops and our sweet potatoes, which we're about to get into here. So this is cooking nicely. Getting a little bit of brown. Starting to smell those flavors. At this point, you could add a little diced onion. You could add a little bit of garlic. I kind of designed these menus with simplicity in mind. However, you know, you can bump it up and make it yours when it comes to this kind of thing. That's looking good. We're gonna give that about 30 more seconds, and then we're gonna add our deglazing mixture, which is apple cider. So whenever I'm making sauces, I want a little bit of acid, I want a little bit of sweet, which is coming from the apples. Then we're gonna add a salty balance, which is gonna be the stock. So now we have all the flavors represented. And then the finishing touch, I'm gonna just keep that a surprise for just a few minutes. But it's really one of my favorite and most satisfying parts of cooking. So I'll be sure to mention that. So as far as our sweet potatoes, let's see, too many things in your view here. I'm gonna things around. This is actually a new recipe. Okay, I kind of came up with this when I was asked to do this class, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't really know. And then when I tried it at home, I was like, wow, it works. It's strange, but it works. We've got creamy, salty cheese with the classic topping of pecans, marshmallows, and butter. So hang with me. I'm going to show you how that's going to look. Just toss this around just a bit. It's looking good. The apples are just starting to brown just a bit and get tender. And we are going to add our apple cider vinegar. And I'm jumping around a bunch, so if you have questions, please feel free to ask. You're going to add that glazing mixture. That's the sound you want, because that's all those delicious flavors coming up from the pan, and stir that around just a bit. And then we're going to add our stock, and we're going to leave that alone. It's going to do the rest of the work while we prep the rest of the meal. And that looks great. So we're going to cook this down for about 10 minutes or so. And yeah, it's going to be great. So with the sweet potatoes, I put in the notes of the the recipe, you're going to want to pre-cook these. I did these on 350 for 45 minutes, and they're nice and tender. They're peeling away from the skin, which is kind of what you want to see. This dish is lovely because you can get it to a point where you can prep 10 at a time. They're all set and ready to go and can hang in your fridge overnight, and then just in the oven the next day, and it's super easy. So first we're going to start with cutting a slit in the top of our potato, and it is cooled because they can also be a little painful to the fingers if they're not cool. And then you're going to take it from side to side, just like so, and kind of mush it a little bit. It's not going to mush all the way. It's going to kind of come out of its skin like so. That's okay. That one actually behaved a lot better. That's what I want to see. But you know, food has its own personality, so you just kind of have to roll with it sometimes. Okay, so that's our pecans. I'm going to pull those out of the oven. I'm going to turn the sauce down and back this away from you a bit. It's very hot. All right, so I'm going to pull the pecans out of the oven, and then I'm going to turn the temperature up to 375. So as you can see, they've got some nice color on them, and it's kind of got this glazed coat over them. And you're going to want to cool them completely, and then they're going to crunch and bring the texture to the salad that is going to make everybody super excited. So we're going to put that in the steam rack, turn it up, and I'm going to go ahead and put our pork chops in. So our pork chops have been pan-seared over our carrots. They're going to go in and do their thing. Back to the sweet potatoes. At this point, this is where it gets weird, but just trust me, it's delicious. You are going to take half a cup of cheese and put it into each potato, just like this. What kind of cheese is it? This is a sharp white cheddar cheese that I bought and grated. I think that makes a big difference. And we're going to put a little pat of butter. You're just going to kind of tuck that around. You know, this one's a tough one to make dairy-free because the cheese really brings what it is. But if you have a wonderful cashew cheese that you enjoy, you can give it a shot. And then, of course, you can use for a balance for the butter. And these can be turned into dairy-free vegan options. Okay. So we have both of our potatoes that are stuffed with cheese and a little butter. Then we are going to take our pecans. And we're going to take our flour and our sugar. I'm using white sugar. The recipe mentions brown, which is also fine. Either sugar works great. So this is our sugar and our flour. And then we have chili and cinnamon. I'm going to put a little bit of salt. And the other 2 pats of butter are going to go in like so. I'm going to put a glove on just because I can't run off to the sink and wash my hands when I'm done with this. This is much easier. So you basically take that butter and you mix it just like you would be for a crumb topping for like a cobbler or something like that. And you're going to do this until the butter is evenly distributed with all of the rest of the deliciousness. Really this takes a little bit of time. This is an important step. Otherwise, there's too much butter on one side, not enough on the other, and then things don't work out the way they should. So there we are. Then we're going to add our marshmallows. We add the marshmallows like so. Mix that around. The marshmallows, they behave kind of strangely as well. So you're just going to kind of place those when it's all said and done, which we're ready for that. So here we are. We're going to evenly distribute this into our sweet potato. So how are you feeling about the sweet potato? What do you think? Is it, you guys think this is a good idea, or are you a little like, oh, no? It's delicious, trust me.
It definitely seems outside the comfort zone.
Yeah. All right.
David, you mentioned something important about when you're cooking for a lot of people with dietary restrictions.
Yes.
You get
Oh, absolutely. So I have been a retreat chef for 17 years of my career. And we obviously deal with a lot of dietary needs all the time. And so when you have people visiting from out of town or friends and things like that, what I find most important is to concentrate on what they can have versus the actual restrictions. And then it just kind of opens up this whole new world of what is available. So that's kind of like my tip on that. Like that's something that, especially when I'm dealing with clients that are worried, like I think I'm getting enough to eat. Is this going to be okay for them? How are you going to make this? And it's just like, you know what, let's just concentrate on what they can have. And then you take that information and then you build from there. So that's kind of my take on that. All right, so we've got our sweet potatoes. They're all beautifully prepped. We're going to put those in the oven with the pork. And pork is sizzling away, doing all the things it should be doing. We're going to set our timer for 6 minutes. Let's just be safe to check on those and make sure everyone is behaving and doing their thing. We'll clean as we go. So our sauce over here has started to reduce because there is still like a touch of flour in the pan from the pork mixed in with the fat. We're actually starting to get a little thickening happening, and we're just going to keep reducing that sauce until it's basically almost gone. And then we're going to add the last ingredient, which is going to be room temperature butter. We're going to turn the heat off, and we're just going to swirl it around, and it's going to make a delicious pan sauce for our pork chops. Good. So before we do that, we need to work on the salad. And salad prep tonight, I'm going to just set this here. First, we're going to start with our dressing. And whenever you're doing a dressing, you want to put your mustard or like whatever your kind of flavoring agent is with the honey in first. And we're going to whisk that around. Rebecca, come on, give me a whisk, please. They are right there. Thank you so very much. And so we're going to start with our honey and our Dijon mustard. And we're going to scrape that into the bowl. Quite the proper shape, but again, it works. So we're going to put that into the bowl. Along with our balsamic vinegar. And then I'm sure you guys know, all of us make dressings here and there. Sometimes I like to make the dressing inside of a mason jar. And you would basically add all these ingredients and shake, 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 and then add your olive oil and then shake again until it's nice and incorporated. But for this one, we're going to use the whisk. So we've got our olive oil. We have our mustard, our balsamic, and our honey, our sweetener. And I like to take a little towel and kind of put that down. It just acts as a little bit of a base. And we're going to whisk these ingredients together first, like so. You could also add different types of dried herbs. Tarragon is really nice in this one. And once you start to see it kind of frothing up, you know that everything is evenly incorporated. We're going to start the pour of our olive oil. So one hand is mixing, the other one is pouring the olive oil. And this is where the towel underneath comes in handy because your bowl is pretty much staying sturdy versus kind of all over the place. You just want to keep whisking until it's all really well incorporated. You could use a blender, hand mixer, whatever your favorite tool is for this kind of thing. You'll notice just as you're finishing up with the olive oil, it starts to thicken just a bit, and that's a good sign that you have the right ratio of olive oil to balsamic. Looking great. A little taste. See where we're at here. Just the right enough of tang with the sweet, and it's delicious. So this dressing, you're not going to need it for just one salad, but it will store in your refrigerator for 7 to 10 days just fine, in an airtight container, and then you can pull it out and use it lots of other times, which is another part of cooking for me at home. Is about what can I do that's prepping me for the next time as well. So, you know, I'm a big believer in that. So salad dressings are super easy to prep lots of, and then they stay well. Quite well. All right, how's everybody? Everybody doing good? Awesome. Let's see, we've got 1 minute and 26 seconds. And I'm starting to smell those marshmallows just a bit, so I'm gonna take a peek. Oh yeah. It's great, it's doing good. Okay, so now for the kale. We're doing a massaged kale salad. This is one of Rebecca's and I's favorite thing to make. Before I get started on that, I do want to mention, if you notice, the liquid is almost cooked out of our pan sauce. So we're actually just gonna turn the heat off and let that kind of sit while we finish out our kale salad. So whenever you're massaging kale, start with a large bowl. You take your kale, turn it upside down just a bit, and you're just gonna strip from the top. We don't want that large stem. We're going from the top, or I guess it would be actually the bottom of the stalk to the top of the stalk, and we're tearing it in bite-sized pieces like so. The fresher the kale, the better. Obviously, kale can get a little bit bitter during the winter months. So summertime is a beautiful time for this salad. But it's also something that's different than just regular lettuce, which is kind of nice to do as well. Thank you very much for keeping time for us. Yeah, so this is basically what we're doing. We're just stripping the kale off of the stem, like so. You know, sometimes you can do the whole like thing. That's exciting when it comes off like that. And yeah, we're just tearing it into bite-sized pieces like so. Okay. So to get the tenderization started with this kale, we are going to add a couple of things. We're going to add a little bit of salt, just a touch. We are going to add a little bit of acid. The acid and the salt combination with a little bit of a massage is going to break down the leaves of the kale, and it's going to be much more tender to eat raw. It almost has a cooking consistency once we're done here. So this process right here that I'm doing can be done ahead and put in the fridge and then chilling, and then you just kind of set yourself up the rest of the way once your guests have arrived. Or hey, once you get home from work. I mean, what's better to know that you've got yourself set up with a nice meal when you get home from work. So we're massaging that kale, starting to break down just a bit. I'm gonna kind of tear it a few more bite-sized pieces. And
The kale massage definitely changed my kale game.
yeah,
It really made all the difference in the world.
yeah, it's a good one. It's if it looks a little bit dry, just add a little bit more oil to it, a little olive oil there. It's good. I have had a lot of people come through the line at the retreats that I've worked at all these years, and they say, I don't even like vegetables, but I've never felt better. I've eaten every single one of yours this week, and it's been wonderful. And I'm not gonna lie, the only things I do are this simple: massaging some kale, putting vegetables out and roasting them on the sheet tray. Like I have found the most simplistic things are the ones that people kind of lean towards enjoying the most. All right, so as you can see, it's broken down. It's a little bit limp, but it's still got all that delicious kale texture. And from this point, we are going to add our dried fruit, which I have apricots and cranberries. But you are welcome to use any kind of dried fruit. Another great, this is good with apples too. It's really good. I have goat cheese. If you're not into goat cheese, just use a different type of soft cheese. Parmesan is really good in this as well. And we are rocking. So we're gonna finish that off. We're gonna garnish it a little bit more with some goat cheese on the top. So then we're gonna take some of our prepared dressing and just put in there the amount that makes you happy. You could also serve the dressing on the side, just as easy. Because your kale is a little bit seasoned because it has the salt and the lemon and the olive oil. It's already kind of got a little bit of seasoning to it.
If you were refrigerating it, would you wait for the dressing?
Absolutely. Yep. You would stop at the massaged part, and then when you were ready to do the rest, you would add the rest of your ingredients when you're ready to serve it. So we're going to toss that around. The ingredients are going to immediately fall to the bottom of the bowl. That's okay. So we're basically, when we're plating this in our platter, we're going to put a lot of that kale on the top. I'm sorry, we're going to put the kale down first, and then as those ingredients have fallen to the bottom, it's no problem because now they're positioned to be on the top of your salad. So we're going to just pour those out like so. All right. So that is our massaged kale salad. We are going, as promised, to put a little bit of the goat cheese on the top, like so. Just forward out of our view. And we'll put this to the side as well. We have that delicious kale salad there. Set and ready to go. And as promised, we're going to enjoy those candied pecans. And again, if you choose to do just toasted walnuts, just toast them in the oven, 350 for 5 to 6 minutes. That's it. You can put a little bit of olive oil on them if you like. Otherwise, they're delicious, just toasted. And the toasting makes a difference because it does bring out the oils in the nut, and that just makes more flavor. So if you can do something super simple to bring out more flavor, why not? So here we are, crunching these up. You can hear all that delicious crunchy texture. And we're just gonna get what we need for the salad, and then the rest can be stored in an airtight container for anywhere from 7 to 8 days as well. So those go on the top of the salad. This is a winner. I really enjoy the flavors that happen with these ingredients all together. And almost as if I planned that. Just kidding. That's really good timing. Okay, I'm gonna check on our pork. Okay, our sweet potatoes are all set, delicious and bubbly. We're gonna set those to the side. We're gonna let go just for a couple more minutes. When you're doing pork loin, you want to cook it to internal temperature of 140 to 145 degrees. That's going to give you a slight pink center. So if you're a little bit more like, hey, I need that cooked all the way, you want to go up to about 150, 155. So for our sweet potatoes, we'll put those on the platter first, and get a little help from my friend here. And so, yeah, they're super cheesy, super melty. I would suggest using a spatula just for easier transport. I mentioned it last week, you know, over time you start to lose the senses of your fingers. And so a lot of times when I'm doing things in front of people, I'm like, oh, I need to remember that there's different tolerance for heat. So make sure you're using a spatula or taking care of yourself, or maybe just set it to the side for a couple minutes and kind of let it cool just a bit. Okay, so as promised, we're going to finish the sauce over here. We've got that last pat of butter. We're just going to slide it in there. We're going to stir this around. We're actually going to remove our thyme now. See how that all just comes out right together. So make sure you get all the stems out. And just swirling that butter around until it's nice and melty. Let's see. All right, got one more piece in there. Actually, one more piece in there. Okay, now it's all set. So we've got this little bit of a pan sauce, and we're just going to stir the butter around. You can omit this part. It's totally up to you. You could also use earth balance if you want to do it dairy free. And that is our pan sauce.
David, what was the pork chop temperature in the oven again?
So the pork chop is at 375. And you're cooking it anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. And you just want to make sure you cook it to at least 140 to 145 degrees. That's kind of where we're at on that. Yep, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. Okay, so we're going to take a look. And it's looking great, I will tell you what. So we've got our pork chop with our carrots on the bottom. I don't know if you can see, but the carrots have turned a little bit on the brown side, which when that happens to vegetables, it just means caramelization. So those natural sugars have come out, they're doing their thing, they're at their peak flavor. We're gonna enjoy this, it's gonna be amazing. I plate on platters all the time, it's kind of what I do, but feel free, you know, you could set this up more buffet style or however you like to plate in your home. We're just gonna do a couple of these pork chops. So kind of up there like that. We'll have our carrots around. So that's that. And let's see, oh my gosh, those pecans, everything smells really good about that sweet potato. I promise, the white cheddar with the sweet, it's the sweet, it's the savory, it's all the things in one dish. It's really nice. So as you can see, we've got our sauce here and it's starting to pick it, it's thickened up just a bit, just enough. And we're gonna put those beautiful apples on top. You may not use all these apples, that's okay, because they will be delicious on other things as well. Get creative with your leftovers. And we're just gonna pour that sauce like so over our pork. Rebecca, do you mind handing me the dessert, please? And so now we have our pork. This is a very busy platter. You may want to put it on 2 different ones. Thank you so much. I will make that. Thank you, Rebecca. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, you know, let's see, what's it need? It needs a pinch of green. So we didn't use all of our thyme earlier. So we're gonna take some of that thyme, just tuck it under our pork like so. So now you've got a hot pork or chicken with your fresh thyme. And that's just even more smell happening. It's really nice. Let's spread that out just a bit. All right. So we've got these things going on. And then here we are. Our dessert platter is all set and ready to go. Everything has hardened up. Our cookies look amazing. And we're gonna platter that up as well. And you know, this is good for kids and really get into like dipped fruits and things.
We have some comments that this looks amazing.
Oh,
It's so
good.
true. You have such a skill for adding color.
and depth to these meals. It's really
Excellent.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that is that. You know what would be really nice with this is it's a bit of mint. Some fresh mint would be a nice garnish. So, and then these are just some of those nice cookies that give a little balance to all of our chocolate. So that's that. And only thing this meal is missing, it's maybe some nice fried cornbread or buttery bread and bread and butter. I don't know. So let's see if I can get this guy over so you can just see. That's just the platter. So it'd be nice to have some mints and things like that to add for a little bit of greenery. But otherwise, this meal is all set. Anybody have any questions or any comments? A little bit about panoramic view here. There it is. So yeah, massaged kale with candied pecans, dried fruit, and goat cheese with a homemade honey balsamic dressing. Then we have this insane pan-seared pork chop with thyme and Honeycrisp apples that have been glazed with apple cider vinegar and butter, with a delicious white cheddar stuffed sweet potato, topped off with pecans, marshmallows, and butter. Delicious, all the flavors on one platter. And then kind of our cheat sheet, we're just gonna dip some chocolate into some fruits and things and enjoy it like that. But don't forget, just add a little bit of extract to your chocolate and you can bring it to a whole nother level, whether it's orange, peppermint, or vanilla.
Such simple ingredients for an amazing meal. I love it. Ooh, cornbread sounds amazing.
We should do that next time because I actually have a really good sweet potato cornbread recipe that I do in cast iron, and it's one of my favorite things to make as well. So I really want to thank all of you for joining me today. I want to thank Leslie for the opportunity to do these classes. It has been quite a fun experience for Rebecca and I to learn new things and to present food. And at this point, we kind of feel like the jar is wide open and there's a lot of opportunity. And so, we'll stay in touch as things kind of unravel and bring a little bit more good-natured foods to your home. So, yeah, thanks for joining.